It's 100 BC. You're a courier at a place called Swankwanji, a relay station at the edge of the Taklamakan Desert. Mud brick, wind, 2,000 kilometers of road behind you. You step into the latrine, and you reach for a stick. Wooden. Cloth wrapped around one end. Communal. Reused. Somewhere in your home right now, there is a plastic-wrapped bale of quilted paper, 3-ply, embossed with a pattern nobody has ever looked at. So, before paper, before plumbing, did ancient humans just not wipe? They did, constantly. And one of those sticks sat in a collection in Gansu for 24 years, until someone looked at it under a microscope and found something that had no business being there, at 1,500 kilometers out of place, inside a human. Let's find out how. First, the question underneath the question. Why does this need doing at all? A dog doesn't wipe. A horse doesn't wipe. Part of that is tails. The bigger part is you. In 2006, Daniel Lieberman's team at Harvard taped electrodes to people's backsides and put them on treadmills. During walking, the gluteus maximus barely fires. During running, it fires hard. It's a running muscle. And compared to any ape alive, it's enormous. 2 very large muscles either side of the midline, something no other primate deals with, a deep fold. No paper says we evolved a wiping problem. That's my inference. But it's the mechanical reason you're dealing with something your dog isn't. We stood up. We ran. Somewhere in that trade, we picked up a chore. In the 1960s, an Irish surgeon called Dennis Burkitt was working in Uganda and noticed his patients almost never got the diseases filling wards in England. So he did something nobody would fund today. He started collecting stools, weighing them, timing them. Rural Ugandan adults were eating around 100 grams of fiber a day. In Britain, 15. Same species. 7 times the input. Burkitt described the result as large, soft, and fast. The refined version was small, firm, and slow. So, high fiber, cleaner exit, problem solved? No. Bigger and faster? Yes, but also softer. And softer isn't obviously easier to clean up after. Nobody has run that study. There is no grant for this. The job wasn't absent. It was different, which is why they had tools. And we didn't invent the behavior. In 2025, researchers working in the Budongo forest in Uganda published a study of 2 chimpanzee communities. In the data, chimpanzees using leaves to clean themselves after defecating. Small numbers, not universal, but there. So this didn't begin with civilization, or shame, or plumbing. It runs deeper than any of them, which means when someone jokes that ancient people must have walked around filthy, they aren't insulting Paleolithic humans. They're insulting a chimpanzee who solved this before we existed. We didn't invent wiping, we branded it. Roman public latrines weren't stalls. They were benches, long stone benches with keyhole opening, 20 or 30 at a time. No partitions, water running underneath, and people conducted business in there. And along the floor at the front ran a second channel of clean water. That was for the tersorium, a sponge on the end of a stick. You used it, and it stayed in the latrine for the next person. We know it existed because Seneca wrote it down, and he only mentions it in passing. The object was too ordinary to explain. Later accounts describe sponges being rinsed in water or vinegar, though the ancient evidence for exactly how is thin. Ancient Rome had communal office equipment. Then there's the other option. Archaeologists digging Greek and Roman latrine pits kept turning up small, flat ceramic discs, 2.5 to 10 centimeters across, edges smoothed, cataloged for decades as gaming pieces. In 2012, a French forensic pathologist named Philippe Charlier proposed in the British Medical Journal that some of them weren't gaming pieces at all. He argued they were pessoi. The word means pebbles, broken pottery, recut, and his point was that the smoothing looks deliberate, angled to minimize anal trauma. There's a Greek proverb quoted in that paper. 3 stones are enough to wipe. And then there's this. Some were cut from ostraca, the pottery shards Athenians scratched names onto when voting to exile someone, which is where the word ostracized comes from. The vote ended. The shard got recut. Examples survive bearing the names of Socrates, Themistocles, Pericles, which raises a possibility nobody can rule out. 2,500 years ago, a man sat in a public latrine in Athens and wiped himself with a philosopher. You've already spotted the problem. A sponge, on a stick, shared by 30 people, rinsed in a bucket. That isn't hygiene. That's a delivery system. Charlier says much the same about the ceramic. long-term use could plausibly have caused irritation, mucosal damage, hemorrhoids. So did these tools solve a problem or move one around? For most of history, we could only guess. Then, someone went back to the sticks. Zhuangquanji was built in 111 BC and ran until AD 109. 200 years of continuous operation at Dunhuang on the edge of the Tarim Basin. Couriers, soldiers, merchants, officials, infrastructure. The latrine was excavated in 1992. Inside were the sticks, wood, and bamboo, cloth wrapped around one end, matching descriptions in Chinese texts of exactly this tool for exactly this job. And on some of that cloth, still attached after 2,000 years, was a dark residue. They went into storage in Gansu and sat there for 24 years. In 2016, a team led by Huiyuan Ye and Piers Mitchell at Cambridge took samples. They pooled the residue from 6 sticks, then took a larger sample from a 7th. The pooled sample gave them worms. Roundworm, whipworm, tapeworm, nothing surprising. Exactly what you'd expect at a busy relay station. Then they tested the 7th. The 7th stick was different. The 7th stick had something that should have been impossible. Chinese liver fluke. And Chinese liver fluke cannot live there. It needs marshland. It needs snails. It needs standing water. Dunhuang is desert. The nearest region that could sustain that parasite was around 1,500 kilometers away. So it almost certainly didn't come from the ground. It came with a person, someone infected in the wet south, who crossed 1,500 kilometers of desert road, arrived at a relay station, used the latrine, used a stick, and left the evidence on the cloth. Let that sink in. We talk about the Silk Road, moving silk, and paper, and religion. This is a physical object proving it moved disease, and the object is a wiping stick. Now here's where we have to be careful, because everything so far is a wiping culture, and wiping is not what most of the world did, or does. Across most of Asia, the Middle East, and North Africa, the answer was water. Poured, scooped, applied with the left hand. And the left hand isn't squeamishness, it's protocol. Designate one hand for cleaning and the other for eating and greeting, and you've built a contamination barrier into the body itself, enforced by manners, taught before memory, and it costs nothing to run. A public health system disguised as etiquette. And medically, it's arguably the better answer. Water cleans, dry paper redistributes, which means the framing most of us grew up with has it backward. Toilet paper isn't the endpoint of a progression. It's one regional branch that happened to industrialize. So, what decided it? 3 things. 1. What was within reach? Not what worked best. What was abundant? Mediterranean cities produced mountains of broken pottery, so the Mediterranean wiped with pottery. Coasts had shells. Forests had moss. Nobody was optimizing. 2. Whether water could be spared. In a river valley, free. In a desert, water is calories, and you are not pouring it on yourself. The desert relay station used sticks. That's not preference, that's arithmetic. 3. What the culture would tolerate. Purity rules, hand conventions. What counted as clean? This is the one we forget, and it decided as much as the other 2. Landscape, water, custom. Every culture on Earth solved the same equation independently, and they all solved it. In Viking Age York, archaeologists recovered a human stool so intact it has its own name, the Lloyd's Bank coprolite. Beside it, the moss used and thrown away with it. In Ming China, records from 1393 list 720,000 sheets a year for the imperial court at Nanjing, plus 15,000 sheets of special soft fabric paper for the Hongwu emperor's family alone, perfumed. 600 years ago, there was already a premium tier. Commercial toilet paper is about 170 years old. Joseph Gaiety put it on the American market in 1857, and into the 1930s, manufacturers were still advertising theirs as splinter-free. Splinter-free was a selling point, which tells you what the competition was doing. But look at the other side of that equation. While we industrialized the paper, we industrialized the food. Milling stripped the fiber. Processing stripped more. Burkett's 100 grams a day fell to around 15 across the high-income world, and it has stayed there. We removed the input, then we sold the cleanup. The average American now gets through over 140 rolls a year, 28 pounds of paper per person, 4% of the world's population, over 20% of the world's tissue. And most of it isn't recycled, because recycled isn't soft enough. It's virgin softwood pulp from the Canadian boreal forest, which holds nearly twice the carbon per acre of tropical forest, and where logging clears well over 1 million acres a year. Centuries of growth, seconds of use. I'm not going to tell you the paper is bad. It's cheap, sanitary, and genuinely pleasant. Nobody reading a philosopher's name off a ceramic shard would have turned it down. But be clear about the exchange. We didn't solve an ancient problem. We manufactured a worse version of it, sold ourselves the fix, and cut down a carbon sink to keep it soft. So, did ancient humans not wipe their butts? They wiped, constantly, carefully, and with more ingenuity than the question assumes. But the limits here are real. Charlier's Pessoy reading is contested. Other researchers think a good number of those discs are amphora stoppers, and almost everything people actually used was soft and organic. Leaves, moss, grass, cloth, water, none of it survives. We're reconstructing the daily habits of billions of people from the handful of objects that happened not to rot. We don't know most of it. We probably never will. What we do know is this. It's Tuesday. You're in a small tiled room with a door that locks, alone, in a building, with running water, and you reach out without looking because you know exactly where it is. That reach is not new. It's the same reach as a courier groping for a stick at a desert relay station. The same reach as an Athenian picking up a shard with a dead man's name on it. The same reach as a chimpanzee taking a leaf. That's not a bathroom habit. That's one of the oldest unbroken chores there is. And you did it this morning without a thought. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you learned something new or just enjoyed it, be sure to give the video a like and let me know in the comments below. Which of these historical methods surprised you the most? Would you rather take your chances with a communal Roman sponge or an Athenian ceramic shard? And did this video convince you that water might actually make more sense than paper? If you'd like to see more videos like this, consider subscribing so you don't miss future uploads. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.